Everybody, this is Michael Thomason with the Mechatronics channel. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about an ActiveX control in FactoryTalk View Studio Machine Edition called ME Chart Control. This ActiveX control allows a user to create a true XY graph. Probably as many of you know, there is a trend function built into FactoryTalk that is just a standard graphic that you can add, but it requires that you graph a Y value basically against time, which isn't always what you want to do. Sometimes you truly want an X variable and a Y variable and to create graphs that way. Or you might even want to just do instead of a trend based on time, a trend based on number of pieces. So you'd have like a measurement value graphed against a like which piece that measurement belonged to. So I got interested in trying to use this ME chart control, ActiveX control, and it took me a little while to figure out. It was a little frustrating because there wasn't a whole lot of documentation online about it. So when I finally figured it out, I wanted to make a video to hopefully save some other people instruction or any frustration. So basically, it's not very hard to do, but you have to set up two UDTs. The first UDT is called Dataseries, and the second is called Chart. And before I go into these UDTs, I just want to say that I didn't choose the names for these variables inside the UDTs. If you do not use these, the chart will not work. So it has to be exactly this. The data type has to match, or else this isn't going to work. So the first UDT is called Dataseries, and it's just got three components to it. It's got a label, which is a string data type, visible, which is a Boolean, and data, which is an array of reals. Now you can make this, 5 or 10 or whatever you want. I just made it 5 because this is just kind of messing around. So the next one is called chart. So we'll go into this UDT. And as you can see, there's a little bit more going on in this, but it's still not really a whole lot to it. The first field is called title. It's a string. This is just the title of your graph. The next one is called number of data points. It's an integer, and this is going to match how many positions you put in that data array in your data series. There's an x-axis label, which is a string, an x-axis minimum, which is a real, x-axis max, which is a real, y-axis label, which is a string, y-axis min, a real, y-axis max, a real. And then we get down to these data series. So there's a data series fixed axis, and this is going to be basically the data on your y-axis, and it's the data series UDT that we just made. And then you have basically data series 1 through 8, all with the data series data type. So then, as you can see, this is the tag that I made with the chart data type. I just called it chart1. And within that, you can see all of these tags, internal tags that have been populated. So there's the title, and I've just been, playing around putting some words and numbers in these. You can see that the number of data points 5 matches the number of data points that I set up the real array in my data series as. I also put chart max, a chart min, x-axis label, y-axis label, and then in the data series fixed axis, so this is your x data, you can see that I turned it on. If you don't turn it on, it's not going to show any data. And I put some numbers in here just so you could be able to see it on the graph. And data series 1 is going to be your first data set on the y-axis. So you could potentially put up to 8 more y-axis data sets for this one axis. And so in the data, you can see I put some numbers in here. So this should make a, what I'll end up doing is I'll end up making like kind of a V-shaped graph so you guys can see it. So I'm just going to go online with this just to go ahead and get it ready. There we go, and you can see the data that I have most recently put in there. So it's right there. So then we're going to go to FactoryTalk View ME, and we're going to put an ActiveX control in there. So the ActiveX control is this X icon that's over towards the right. You're just going to click on it and drag, release, and it pops up with all these different ActiveX controls that you can choose from. So the one we're looking for is called ME Chart Control. And there it is. So we select, hit OK. It's going to pop up with this message about making sure that it's available. Hit OK. And then you get your standard FactoryTalk dialog box for this control. So in this general tab, you have your display chart title. You can either put in a fixed value or you can control it by a tag. Since we have this UDT set up, I'm just going to leave it controlled by a tag. You also have your redraw mode. You can either command it to redraw or you can do an automatic redraw. I'm going to do automatic, and we'll just leave it at 1 second. And then you can actually say if you want the data points to be connected or you only want to show markers. You can choose the orientation of the chart, so you could have the Y as the fixed axis or you could have the X as the fixed axis. I'm just going to leave the X as the fixed axis. Over here on the pins tab, you can choose whether or not you want to display the legend. I'm going to remove the legend. And then you can choose your colors and your widths and your styles and whether or not you want to have markers. You have several different options for what you can make the markers. I'm just going to leave it with no marker. On your x-axis, you can choose your minimum and maximum values. Automatic is, I'm not going to use it because in the UDT we have the min maximum, so I'm going to choose custom and controlled by a tag. Maximum value also going to be controlled by a tag. You can choose to display an axis label, or you can not display it. You can have it controlled by a tag, which is part of our UDT, or you can choose a fixed value. You can also scale these, choose where you want your grid lines to be, or how many grid lines you want to have, and your colors. Y-axis is going to be pretty much the same thing as x-axis. We're going to go to custom again and controlled by tag for the minimum and maximum values, and we're going to leave all this the same. Common is just the size, and whatever you want to name it, make sure it's visible, all that. Now for your connections tab, which is where you actually link it, you can see that you actually have several fields that you could populate. So we chose that we're just going to do an automatic redraw every 1 second. So we don't need a tag there. We're not ever going to clear it, but if you wanted to just wipe everything off the graph, you could put a tag there, and when you trigger that tag, it would clear it. Data source is the one that we want to actually populate. So I'm going to choose the tag that we created. that has that chart data type, which was called chart1, and hit OK. You also have an error code that you can populate a tag with, and that's how I actually determined that you have to name all of these tags within the UDTs exactly as I did, because I was getting an error message if I didn't, and the tags weren't, or the chart wasn't working properly. So I'm just going to hit apply, hit OK, and there we have it. It's got a title, it's got the y-axis min and min and max, and the x-axis min and max. It's got all the labels and everything. So then we're just going to hit play, and you can see these updated to the values that I actually had in the tags. And then there's the data. So this is just 5 points, so you can kind of see I have a point there, a point there, point there, a point there, a point there. But you know, you can add as many points as you want. This is just a small amount of data just to play around with it. And that's pretty much it. So I'll probably put a list of what actually goes into each data type, because that's kind of the tricky part, and that's the part that I had trouble with in the description of the YouTube video, so that if anybody else wants to set this up, it's very easy to do.